and love, family. Welcome to another Black African Power lecture series hosted by yours truly, Dr. Oya Edward Maat. I see you all are in the building already. Peace to the Maatian family in the building. I see somebody named Naga Priest is in the building. Peace and love to you, Naga Priest. Naga Priest said greetings. Drop in early for a front row seat. I can dig it. I can dig it. Naga Priest. Peace and love to you, beloved. I see the Queen Mother, a beautiful mind, is in the building. Peace and love to you. The Uhuru Academy. Baba, I sent you the link. I don't know why you up on. I don't know why you in the chat. I emailed you a link and I text you. So anyway, the Uhuru Academy is in the building. He says, peace. I'm here for it. I see her, she, Mer. Peace and love to you. She said, greetings, family, with the red, black, and green. Peace and love to you. A beautiful mind says, happy Tuesday to everyone. And I see my brother, my warrior, my comrade, Africa the Great, is in the building. He says, Black power to my African family. And so you heard the Queen Mother. She said, right now, family, thumb up the stream. Thumb up the stream. You know the way the YouTube algorithm works. The more you engage the video, so that means the more you thumb it up, the more you leave comments, the more it circulates on YouTube. And we live in this information age, man, where a lot of garbage is circulating on social media. And so we want to make sure that we combat that garbage, right? With stuff like this, with the Black African Power lecture series. And tonight, family, I have with me another master teacher, Dr. Tyrene Wright. And you all know who she is. If you're a part of the Maatian family, you know who she is, because the Read Book Club, we read and studied and discussed with her book, Booker T. Washington in Africa, The Making of a Pan-Africanist. And so a lot of us thought we knew about Booker T. Washington. There go that Baltimore accent, right? They knew. You thought you knew about Booker T. Washington, but did you really? I realized when I read her book, I realized how much I did not know, right? About our great ancestor, Booker T. Washington. So if you don't have this family in your catalog, make sure you get this book. And if you're not much of a reader, which you should be, if you're not much of a reader, make sure that you go to the Read Book Club playlist that's on my channel, because we actually met every week and discussed different, all of the chapters. And she came on and joined us for a few of the discussions. And so, family, make sure that you go back and check out those discussions. And then also, you may be a reader and you may say, well, I want to read the book and, and listen in on the discussion. So make sure that you do that, family. The name of the book, I see the homie Steph. The name of the book is Booker T. Washington in Africa, The Making of a Pan-Africanist. And let me tell you what I'm going to do for you, since you're asking about it. I'm going to drop the link in the chat. Booker T. Washington and Africa. All right, I'm going to drop the link in the chat so that you can grab this masterpiece by one of our master teachers, Dr. Tyrene Wright. By Dr. Tyrene Wright. Okay, so family, I have it right here. Here's the book. And I love the way she wrote it. It's so well written, but it's written in a way that we can understand it. She wasn't trying to talk over your head or nothing like that. You get what I'm saying? It's informative, it's powerful, and it's written in a way that you can comprehend the material easily. Okay, so make sure that you get it. You see, it's not a thick book, right? It's not a thick book. It's a good read, right? And it's a good read. And when I say it's a good read, anything under like about $1.50 is a good read for me. Now, when you get to about 350, 400, and 500, you're in it for a long period of time, right? And so anyway, family, make sure that you check it out. I see cultural social. Cultural social is in the building. Peace and love to you. You got to come on sometime when I'm rocking your shirt. I love the shirt with the onk, man. So cultural social, make sure you drop a link to your merchandise in the chat so some of our family, so that my audience family can get some of that good cultural social merchandise. Ashe? So I see, what is it? The homie Steph is in the building. I see another Queen Mother, Goddess Yemiya is in the building. She says, peace, Dr. Maat and beautiful Black family. # Black Power. I see Lama Bay is in the building. He says, peace and blessings to both of you, Queen Doctors. I bow to the work of Dr. Wright. Ashe. And I see our great Dr. Craig Samuels in the building. He said, Bibi Fahodie, peace and power to the family of Bibi Fahodie, to you, Dr. Craig Samuels. Baba, where you been? I'm up here. You in the chat, Baba, talking about peace out here. Boy, I'm looking like, Baba, I sent you the link.
Yeah, I know. I got cheering. Sometimes you got to chase them.
Baba, you was
Sometimes I gotta get up and chase people and all that kind of stuff. Man. Yeah. But I'm back. I'm black. No, I'm black.
you
Had to
black.
step away for a second, but I'm black.
You black man,
Yeah.
Baba, I'm so like looking forward to hearing Dr. Wright, talk about, African women, in the struggle, and I titled this, I said, beside every great man is a great woman. And I feel
Right.
like, Baba, a lot of times, our women, we get overshadowed. You know what I mean? So we talk about, Dr. King, but I'm like, what about Coretta? We talk
Right.
about Malcolm, but what about Betty? We talk about Marcus Garvey, but what
What
about
about
both?
the
Look,
Amy's?
both Amy's. Look, both
Amy.
Amy's,
Right.
and then his right hand woman, Henrietta Vinton Davis. You get what I'm saying? We
Yes.
talk about Dr. King, and then don't talk about Ella Baker. You know what I'm saying? So it's like a lot of our women, the women, we get, I
Right.
don't want to say we get completely left out, because you do have brothers like yourself. You get what I'm saying? Who will,
Right.
lift up these women, but it's like we get overshadowed, by the men. And so I think that this discussion is definitely needed, Baba,
Right.
today, to lift up those sisters. Even
Right.
with the Haitian Revolution, they talk about Toussaint, they talk about Dessalines, they
Right.
talk about Boukman, they talk about all of those people. But when you actually study the Haitian Revolution, there was so many women,
Yes. Cecilia
involved in that.
classified more. Yes.
Yeah, Cecilia, all of that, so, and even when the Nat Turner Rebellion,
Yes.
you got Sister Lucy, who was
Yes.
riding with those men,
Yes.
riding out, and she actually got executed alongside those men. So,
Mm-hmm.
we got to tell these stories, Baba. You know what I mean? And so, what are
Yes.
your thoughts, Baba, about tonight and Dr. Wright talking about,
No.
uplifting the women in the struggle?
Excited and energized by it because there's never been a powerful fight or revolution among our people that black women weren't integral parts of, and leaders in. You know what I'm saying? It's always been a mutual thing. I don't think we've ever been a people where the women sat down while the men fought. You know what I'm saying? And so it's definitely during our sojourn here in America. We needed women on the plantation who often had access to the house or access to the kitchen, you know what I'm saying, to get weapons, to get extra food out to the field and that sort of thing. We needed powerful mothers to become family and extended family, taking in children whose parents may have been sold off and that sort of thing. Even when you talk about someone like Dessalines, who was trained by his warrior mother.
Come on, talk about it,
to be
Baba.
the warrior that he was. So no, definitely. Even when I was coming up, Dr. My God, in the 90s, we celebrated Dr. Khalid Muhammad and Ashraf Kwesi and Doc Ben. We didn't talk as much about Mama Marimba Ani and Dr. Frances Cress Welsing and Shahrazad Ali and some of the women who were out there teaching and brought powerful concepts to the table. So I'm excited about tonight.
Absolutely. And then look, we could bring that to today. We talk about Baba Baruti, but what about Mama Ya Baruti?
Yeah.
You get what I'm saying? We
Yeah.
talk about Baba Ashwell Kwesi, but what about Mama
Maria.
Mariwa Kwesi? You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so it's like
Mama Mariwa or Marira, because I'm from Texas, Mama Marira, she to me, much love to Baba, she's the better presenter of the two.
She's sharp.
I'm shocked that she doesn't get as many, and she may get invites, because
right.
Yeah, she may choose not to. But I've seen some of her lectures, and I've been in her presentation, and I'm telling you, she's given some of the most thorough presentations I've ever seen.
Even Dr. Leonard Jeffries, I mean, his wife. I'm having a brain freeze. I know Dr. Wright is she knows her name, but Dr. Jeffries, and I'm talking about the female counterpart, right?
Mm-hmm.
She's sharp. But we never tell those stories. But anyway, Baba,
that's my wife and Koyo Ojo.
Yeah, Mama and come on, Mama and Koyo. Shout out to Mama and Koyo.
Beat me up on my own songs.
So Baba, Baba said beat me up on my own songs. Baba, but talk to us about the UACI Summer STEM Camp. And I'm gonna drop the link in the chat so people can access.
All right, real quick, y'all got some great news tonight. Great news, because I know some people may have been concerned that the camp was coming up too quick. But y'all, we have the UACI Uhuru Academy Conscious Ingenuity Summer STEM Camp 2023 going down now from July 10th to July 21st, right? So you got a little time, but not that much time because slots are filling up fast. We have 30 slots. Y'all, the most unique summer camp in the world because we're combining the glory of our past. In other words, we're teaching African history, the African history in STEM, with preparing our children for the future. So Uhuru Academy is bringing Sankofa for success, and Conscious Ingenuity is coming in bringing cybersecurity, AI, coding, the basics of coding, circuitry, right? And we're combining the two curriculums to create a learning experience like no other. It's going to be interactive. It's going to be fun. This is our second year rocking out, y'all. So y'all know we don't work out the kinks. It's going down. I mean, it was great last year, and some of those children are returning. So they grabbing their slots. Grab your slot today, family. All right, grab your slot today. UACI Summer STEM Camp 2023, July 10th through July the 21st. Most unique learning experience in the world for Black children right now today. I say that boldly and I say that without shame. And there are also sponsorship opportunities available. Right? Hey, y'all, I read a study that says sponsorship marketing is one of the most effective forms of marketing out there today. When you show the community that you care, the community cares about you. So to that end, you can go to the site, to the link that's in the chat, scroll down to the part that says be a sponsor, and go check out how you can attach your brand to the most unique learning experience for Black children in the world this summer. Oh, I say that boldly. Find me one more unique. Find me one that takes us as far back to the past and as far into the future at the same time. I challenge you, right? And even if you find one, it ain't as unique as ours because they ain't got Dr. Maat and BAP.MSU. And you talking about a combined over 50 years experience combined working with Black children. Okay, so we're not dealing with some panty Annie stuff, right? You're talking to the experts right now, and we want your baby to be involved. We want your family to be involved. So head over to uhuruacademy.com, check out the link in the chat, and get on with this summer STEM camp. And if you ain't got any children, send it to somebody else. Gift somebody with the camp, your grandchild, your niece, your nephew, right? You know what? Send a donation in and sponsor the camp for a young person who or family who otherwise couldn't be involved in the camp. Now we're grabbing the sponsorships. We're going to make this thing as free as possible for those, who need it the most. But at the same time, y'all, come on and get your slot now. Pay the tuition. It's affordable. When you support programs like this, not only is your child learning, but you're helping us build and sustain independent programs that we control. And that's very important because when we get the money from the system want to tell us what to do. But we are the system. And if we can feed that system, we can definitely feed our system.
Ashe, Baba. Thank you so much, Baba. Asante Sana, Baba. Asante Sana for coming through and just dropping those jewels. I just hope that people hear you. Our babies need STEM. STEM makes the world go round. You and I today, you spent like 2 hours helping me get my Conscious Ingenuity handbook together, Baba. And we were talking about how, we're in a technological revolution right now.
Yes.
That's what's happening. And, and we see that in different periods of U.S. history. First is the agricultural, then it's the industrial. And now we're in the technological revolution. We see that. And so the question becomes, are we prepared? And right now, with Black people being only 5% of scientists and engineers, we're not prepared, Baba. We're not prepared, but we need to get prepared. And so that's what STEM camps like this, that's what it's all about, getting our children prepared to make sure that they are ready for what's coming in the future. And so anyway, Baba, I appreciate you coming on, Baba. Peace and love to you.
Hey, peace and love. I'm about to sit back and enjoy the lecture.
Oh, it's going to be off the chain. If you know like I know, Baba, ooh, this sister bad. She bad. Ashe, Baba. Peace, Baba. All right, family, I have 2 more announcements to make, and then we're going to go ahead and I think I already have this one. Hold on. Let me go back. Here it is, the science fair. Make sure, family, that you're in the building here it is, family, that you're in the building this Saturday. All right, from 2 p.m. to 7 p.m. at the science fair, Zyx Science Fair. So Q Butter had this vision. He said, I want to put on a science fair in Brooklyn, New York. And he got different people together, created a committee. And on Saturday, it's finally going down, family. So make sure that you're in the building. I think it's going to be at the Plaza. Yep, Restoration Plaza in Brooklyn, New York. So make sure that you're in the building. It says free admission. You're going to see, I mean, can you imagine that, seeing a sea of black babies practicing STEM? I mean, can you imagine that? And so it's going to be a sight to see, family. Make sure that you're in the building, okay? It's going to be in Brooklyn, New York. If you're in New York, if you're in Philly, if you're in Delaware, if you're in Baltimore, if you're in the DMV, right? Make sure that you're in the building. If you can't be in the building, family, make sure that you donate. Donate. Here it is right here. I'm going to drop the link. I'm going to drop the link in the chat. Make sure that you donate so that you can sponsor this event. So a lot of times when we can't make events, we just, oh, I ain't going. And then we don't do anything. Well, if you can't make it, at least click the link and say, well, let me drop $10, $20. Let me put that on the event. I can't be there, but I can still support it in some respects. Okay. So make sure, family, that you're in the building. And if you're not in the building, make sure that you donate. And even if you plan to be in the building, still donate. Okay. Because Q is he's secured the building. He's getting STEM kits and all kinds of stuff for the children. He's buying decorations. He's buying medals to make sure everybody goes home a winner. Like, he's doing all sorts of stuff. And this takes money. It takes money to do this stuff. And a lot of times, family, we say that we support people, but a lot of times it's lip service. We support people with our words. And I'm not saying that words don't matter. They do. But we need to start supporting with our resources, right? Our resources. Money, if you can, your talents, your skills, your abilities. We need to start supporting in those areas, Ashe. And then last but not least, family, be in the building. Hold on. Here it is, family. I'm going to drop this in the chat. Make sure that you're here, family. It's going down in Ghana next year in 2024. We're going to Ghana, a Ghana tour. Go to Go to Ghana with your sister Ma'at. Come to Ghana with your sister Ma'at. Okay, it's a 10-day tour, $4,500. And I know some of you say $4,500. Well, about $1,700 is going to your plane ticket. And then the rest is going to cover your lodging, transportation, entrance into a lot of other stuff, and also food. I believe it's breakfast and dinner. All right. And so 45 is really nothing for what you're going to experience. And family, I'm going to be right there with you, boots on the ground. Okay. And so the deposit is $500. And so you got to get the $500 in ASAP if you are going. And so I'm going to send you Sister Marjorie's email address so you can hit her up for any additional information. Again, it's just a $500 deposit. Okay. And I believe you have to have half of it paid by like the end of September. We in June, man. So we got plenty of time, okay, to at least make sure that it's paid. All right. So make sure that if you can come, family, come on. We're going to go to all the dungeons. We're going to museums. We're going to do a naming ceremony. We're going to Aston Manso, where our ancestors took their last bath. We're going to walk through Jamestown, look at the tunnels where they were bringing our ancestors through. It's going to be, and then we're going to have fun stuff too. We're going to be out, drinking and having good time and stuff like that, and eat, drink, and be merry. So we're going to have our time. We're going to go to the beach. So we're going to have fun. But this trip is really about reconnecting with our brothers and sisters on the continent and with our ancestors. And so make sure, family, if you can come, reach out to Sister Marjorie Nicole. Her email address is on the screen, NSAA Creation. So that's insacreation@gmail.com. All right, family, I think I have all of my announcements out. What I'm going to ask you to do right now is 3 things. Thumb up the video. Thumb up the video. Share this video. Share this video. Each one teach one, right? As I learn, we learn, right? As Brother Kofi Paisa would say. As I learn, we learn. So let's share. Sharing is caring. So thumb up the video. Share the video. If you're on Facebook, post a link. If you're on Twitter, tweet the link. If you're on other social media platforms, post a link. Okay? Share. Also, you can text this link to other people. Let's fill these virtual seats. Let's get at least about another 70 people in here. Let's fill these virtual seats. And then lastly, when I bring on Dr. Wright, I'm going to ask her for her Cash App. And what I want us to do, family, is while she's presenting, because it's going to get hot in here, the United States, pass the collection plate around, pass the plate around. We're not going to pass the plate around. We're simply going to send her a Cash App. All right? a Cash App. And I'm also going to ask her for her PayPal because some of you may not have PayPal. You may have some of you may not have Cash App. You may have PayPal. So I'll get her means of payment. Okay. And then also, family, you can go to her page, go to her website, and buy her book. All right. Let's support our scholars so that they can continue to do the work. We want to log in and spin our chairs around and log into YouTube lectures, but then you don't support the work. How are you supporting the work? I mean, your views are nice. That's great. But we need money and resources to continue doing this work. Ashe? All right. So I'm going to bring on, without further ado, I'm going to bring on our master teacher, Dr. Tyrene Wright. Peace and love to you, Dr. Wright. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing all right, Doc. I can't complain. I can't complain. First of all, Doc, I just want to salute you
Thank you.
for creating this masterpiece right here, Booker T. Washington in Africa, the making
Oh,
of
thank
Pan
you.
Africanist. This was a wonderful, wonderful read. I mean, I can't stress to you enough how informative and how powerful this book is. And so, Doc, I appreciate it. And I'm actually looking forward. I know you're doing some research to get some other stuff together, and I'm looking forward because I forward to it because I learned such a great deal from you. And I just wanted to salute you for creating this masterpiece, Doc.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, thank you for making it a part of your read book club. I appreciate that. That was a rare opportunity because most authors never get a chance to really talk to the readers of the book, right?
Mhm.
And so
Absolutely.
that was that was perfect. So I appreciate you.
And look, I appreciate you dropping in during those discussions because, a lot of times we're reading the books and we reach out to the authors and we say, well, can you join the panel? And then no one responds to the email. So you actually responded and you came in and you helped us break down, chapters, and you provided clarity on some things we didn't understand. So
Mhm.
I really appreciate you. And I'm saying but I speak for Brother Tiwolo also. We appreciated you coming on and helping us break down these discussions. Doc, what are your thoughts about what I said to Baba Amin regarding, women in the liberation struggle? Do you think that sometimes we get overshadowed by our male counterparts?
Absolutely,
Okay.
absolutely, and yes, I agree with that. Not only do I agree with that, I understand that it is a classic issue. It's an issue that we're still struggling with, right? And I think it's something that we need to talk about because we don't recognize enough how we're not allowed to not fight on all fronts.
Mm,
Okay.
mm.
So, and I'm saying that in light of what I know that I'm going to share with you all because I'm going to, focus on this particular context. But yes, we don't look at it as much of what African and Black women do with regard to liberation of our communities, liberation of our nations is out of necessity, and that we very often we rise to the occasion, but we have no other choice, right? So
Mm.
it has become part of our character to rise to the occasion, to show up.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And Doc, before we get started, what is your Cash App, Doc?
Okay, my cash. Thank you. And the reason why I'm saying that is because, like, I have to look at it to tell you my cash app. Back to my because all right, so it's dollar sign
Uh-huh.
Tyrene Tyrene
Hmm.
Wright WRIGHT. So basically, it's dollar sign then my name Tyrene Tyrene Wright WRIGHT.
Love it. Love it. I'm getting ready to put it on the screen.
Okay.
I'm getting ready to put it on the screen. Family, right now, you're getting ready to hear a dynamic presentation by a dynamic scholar, a master teacher, Dr. Tyrene Wright. Let's practice Ma'at. Let's practice reciprocity because she's going to be giving us a lot tonight. And so we can give her something, right? And so let's make sure that we cash app her at dollar sign Tyrene Wright. Okay. Dollar sign Tyrene Wright. I'm actually getting ready to cash her right now. Like while she's talking, I'll be cash apping her. So family, make sure that you join me in practicing reciprocity. All right. And so, Doc, thank you so
Yeah.
much again for joining the virtual community. The floor is all yours. Your presentation is on the screen.
Okay. So first of all, what I wanted to say now, Dr. Ma, I can't see. everything. I see my presentation, but
Oh, you good to go. You good to go.
okay. So I'll be doing when I'm done, I'm going to close it, and then you'll just, I'll just see you all or see you, Dr. Mott.
Absolutely.
Um,
Absolutely.
and I want to go back. So this presentation in particular is one that I recently gave for Women's History Month, and I wanted to focus on the philosophy of Thomas Sankara in particular, because he has a unique philosophy and understanding that I think we miss, particularly in organized struggle. So, in other words, when we engage in organized struggle, this particular position that Thomas Sankara in particular held on women and women's contributions to our liberation struggles, both on the continent and in the diaspora, has been a blind spot to us. Okay. So I want to preface it with that. And then afterwards, I want to go back and I'm just going to give you some notables so you understand that what this tradition that I'm talking about in terms of women engaging in struggle is one that goes back into our antiquity. Okay, so this is not a recent thing. We have always been in the role of leaders and leadership, and also leaders in our liberation struggles, right? So I just want to, give you that little caveat. So, oh, okay, thank you. All right, so now let me turn the sound off because I wasn't expecting that. Thank you. Okay, so first off, you can see the presentation, I assume, and Thomas Sankara, The Upright Man's Philosophy on the Liberation of Women. And I want to just make sure that you all understand this comes from the philosophy side or the philosophical side of what I'm about to present to you, comes out of a speech that Thomas Sankara delivered on March the 8th, 1987 in Burkina Faso, uh, in the city of Ouagadougou. And he basically gave a speech on a day commemorating women. And to this day, it is their International Women's Day, celebrated in the country, but also around the world. And he's critiquing the nature and the struggle of women in the context of the phase of development that Burkina Faso is in at that particular time. Okay. That being said, this could be applicable to so many of our African nations that had newly had independence. Okay, so I'm gonna, read a little bit. So, capitalism and women. The women's social oppression was a direct reflection of our economic oppression throughout the ages. Wherever patriarchy triumphed, there has been a close parallel between class exploitation and women's oppression, but the essential features of her subjugation survived and were consolidated both in everyday activity and in intellectual and moral repression. Women shared the lot of the slave, who in slave societies, it should say, was nothing more than a beast of burden with a human face. Now, so let me put this in context. Thomas Sankara, March 8th, 1987, delivers this speech to the citizens, primarily women of Burkina Faso. On this day, he designated that the men go to the marketplace and the women attend the speech. And he delivered 2 3 hour speech on this issue of the condition of women. Why? Because this country had found their liberation. However, the women were not liberated. Okay. And so he's noting that, okay? He's noting that this revolution, and we all have to go undergo a revolution, this revolution would include the liberation of the women in this nation. Okay, and that's not standard. Okay, so women in violence, because the cycle of violence and inequality can only be done away with by establishing a new society. the global condition of women. And these are his major points that he delivered at this speech. The condition of women is therefore at the heart of the question of humanity itself, here, there, and everywhere. The questions are thus universal in character. Let me just say this. Theoretically, and that's where I'm taking this from, theoretically, first and foremost, is an understanding that a nation can only rise as high as their women, right? And that is the perspective through which he is speaking, or the lens through which he is speaking. He's saying that to subjugate your women is to note your lack of development. Okay? Women fight on four fronts. Women, our sisters, fighting as they are on the forefronts of our war against disease, hunger, poverty, and degeneracy, feel the pressure of changes over which they have no control. Women as tools. Woman is the pillar of the family well-being, the midwife, washerwoman, cleaner, cook, errand runner, matron, farmer, healer, gardener, grinder, saleswoman, worker. She is labor power, working with obsolete tools, putting in hundreds of thousands of hours for an appalling level of production. So, and then you see the citation there. This comes directly. I'm going to show you a text too as well, but this comes directly from this speech. And some of you may know that there is a book called Women's Liberation in the African Freedom Struggle, if you all can see that. Interestingly enough, Thomas Sankara's book, the one I just shared, is on YouTube, and you can listen to that book if you feel like you want to get the concrete ideas. Now, I'm not going to do this real quick. I'm not going to show any video because I don't want to break any rules here in the way that we're doing this, but I'm going to highlight some points just in the philosophy. The women and men of our society are all victims of imperialist oppression and domination. That is why they wage the same battle. African men, African women, we wage the same struggle against the pure imperialism, against colonialism, against white supremacy and culture. Okay? Revolution and women's liberation go together. We do not talk of women's emancipation as an act of charity or out of a surge of human compassion. It is a necessity for the revolution to triumph, Thomas Sankara. And so the book that I just showed you is the source of that. Now, the philosophical lines that exist along women's liberation, we have a couple of leaders on the African continent through the period of our liberation struggle. So when Africa is taking back their nations on the continent, we have two progressive, I would say, leaders, heads of state, and one would be Ahmed Sekou Touré. I don't have the book on here right in front of me, but he wrote a book called Women in Society. And then the other is Amilcar Cabral, who saw and practiced having women as armed militants in the people's struggle. He saw them as equally responsible for advancing the liberation of Guinea-Bissau in particular as the men. And so if any of you know the history, which I'm going to get into, um, you will see that women and men in the context of Guinea-Bissau fought side by side. Okay, there was no separation of men and women. They were equally responsible for challenging the Portuguese imperialists in bringing that country to liberation. Very complex struggle. I'll talk a little bit more about it. So, a word on Marxist and Leninist philosophy and African people. Now, first off, because I'm centering this conversation around women's role and participation in our liberation struggle on the continent first, and then I'm coming to the U.S. and the diaspora a little later in the presentation, but on the continent of Africa, one of the criticisms that we have here is the fact that many of our Pan Africanists, Nkrumah, Sekou Touré, even Amilcar Cabral, and later on Thomas Sankara, all had been critiqued and criticized for subscribing to Marxist and Leninist philosophy as it applies to their Eastern European context. So they're saying Sankara, Nkrumah, uh, Sekou Touré, many others, you have a Marxist Leninist leaning. Listen, so you see the screen here. My critique, the what I'm going to say to you in the context of this presentation and whenever I speak on this issue, Marx and Lenin were not talking about African people. Okay. Um, Marx and Lenin, who, yes, had a particular critique of their Eastern European context and acknowledged the oppression of women, were not thinking about you or I, okay, when they critiqued their society. So you cannot take Marxism and Leninism and neatly apply it to the African struggle for liberation. Okay, why? One, they weren't thinking about us. Two, the conditions were completely different. Okay. Thomas Sankara does acknowledge the Marxist and Leninist line, which is dialectical materialism, and scientific socialism, which Nkrumah talks about, right? So Pan Africanism, uh, the unification of Africa under scientific socialism. But Amilcar Cabral is more accurate in understanding that our liberation struggles must include history as a tool and a weapon for liberation. Our liberation struggles must include culture as a tool of liberation. Okay? And if you understand the Marxist Leninist line, one would say that they don't subscribe to history and don't subscribe as to culture. They only subscribe to a material analysis, okay? Meaning waging a class struggle between classes over material. That's not so for the African person. Part of our liberation struggle means reclaiming our culture, languages, norms, values that were erased in the context of colonialism, that were erased in the context of slavery. Okay. Also, history. History is the tool of liberation. We must reclaim our history. Once again, erase. Most of you would probably understand and know that African people had been deemed ahistorical in Western in the Western context, in the Western Academy, in the present society that we live in. Ahistorical, even though we are the first to write, right? And we wrote forever. We wrote our story on the temples, right? And in the human context, that means forever. It's still there. That being said, history is a weapon. History, and Cabral talks about and writes about history as a weapon. Many of you probably are familiar with that. So the point is that Thomas Sankara, yes, some may see him as having a Marxist-Leninist orientation to a degree because he is making a material analysis for his country as they are coming through and developing post-revolution. But the reality is that that is not appropriate 100% for him, right? So Marx critiqued the oppression of women in society from a European context, all of them, Marx and Lenin both. So I want to just say that because I do think we're living in an age where you're bombarded with this whole Ukraine and Russia dynamic, and I see our people having conversations around this idea that, well, Eastern Europeans didn't have slaves, so they must be aligned with African people. Absolutely not. I would not say that. Okay, I would not say that. So we need to give them as much attention as they gave us when they were thinking about their approach to their revolution. None. Okay. It is outside of our best interest to wholly and completely adopt a Marxist Leninist line or even to give too much energy to it, right? So that's all I'm going to say on that. African men and women equally oppressed under capitalism. We don't want to talk about that. We don't want to make a critique of capitalism, but in the context of all of our struggles, from the continent to the Americas, African men, African women equally oppressed. When we begin to talk about capitalism, and I think there's probably no person who has attempted to engage in leadership of our people, liberation of our people, who has not had to come to terms with the diabolical, even and detrimental aspects of capitalism as it relates to us, okay? African people. We were the commodity. Black men, Black women, African women equally. Okay? So Thomas Sankara is highlighting in this context of this speech the specific character of women's oppression, right? So, given that both men and women are oppressed under capitalism, oppressed under imperialism and colonialism, and even neocolonialism, he gives you a profile to um, identify how oppression plays out, how it's transferred. And before I even get into this, I want to just say, I want to cite something that I always cite that comes from Kwame Ture, Stokely Carmichael. Some of you call him still, even though it's Kwame Ture. He talks about the role of the conscious, what it is that we should be doing, right? And I'll connect it to this. Kwame Ture says the role of the conscious is not to make the unconscious conscious. The role of the conscious is to make the unconscious conscious of their unconscious behavior. Okay? Behavior. And what does that mean? That means that the role of anyone who thinks they have some level of consciousness is not to point their finger at the person next to them, behind them, in front of them, and say, you need to be like me. The role of the conscious is to say, why are you doing that? Whose interest does that serve? Why are you doing what you're already doing or have been known to do? To what end? And whom does that serve? Okay, so now we become conscious of our unconscious behavior. Consequently, the exploited man and woman, right? We're talking about behavior, the character of women's oppression. The fate of woman is intertwined with that of the exploited man. They are historically bound together and therefore interdependent. Both men and women are condemned to silence in their economic exploitation. So, the specific character of women's oppression: the worker wife is condemned to silence by her worker husband. In addition to class exploitation, women are confronted with an additional layer of relations of conflict, violence, that use physical difference as their pretext. Okay, so he's highlighting how this plays out in a post-colonial context and a revolutionary, a nation that is continuously undergoing a revolution. So in many ways, like how we talk about the revolution in Cuba, well, Burkina Faso was undergoing a revolution, right? Post liberation. And he's talking about how women were continuously oppressed, a carryover from the colonial regime, a carryover from the colonial reality. However, Black agents and actors, right? The exploited male of natural differences, exploitation of natural differences between men and women, employs the same tactics of class exploitation to maintain domination over women. These tactics are identical to those employed by men to rule over other men via ethnicity, family origin, birth, race, divine right, etc. What does this mean? This means that the same tactics that found us exploited by white supremacy and culture in the form of European imperialism, European colonialism, Eurocentric ideas and values. Those same tactics of domination are used on the women in a post colonial reality, right? So go back to my quote by Kwame Ture. The role of the conscious is to make the unconscious conscious of the unconscious behavior, right? These tactics are identical to those employed by men to rule over other men, ethnically, right? Family, origin, birth, race, divine right, etc. So other profiles. So these are some of the profiles. He gets very deep into it. Thomas Sankara talks about how this is expressed by men in this particular society, but this can be translated into many and many post-colonial realities, because one of the things that colonialism has done to us is make us consistently work against our own best interest, right? Turn in on ourselves. So he talks about the profiles that men embody in this particular context. He says, commit women to chastity via religious customs, tradition, moral doctrines as a means of domination. Think about any religious organization or faction and how religion is used in the subjugation of women in many ways. Okay? And think about how religion was used in the effort to colonize African people. Think about how religion was used in an effort to enslave African people, right? It's playing out much in the same way. So the pleasure seeker, so these are profiles. The pleasure seeker who avoids the responsibility of a home, family, fatherhood, or moral responsibility. That's self-explanatory, right? That's one profile. Practitioners of misogyny subject women to vicious public attacks while engaging in the utilization of women for sexual gratification. Self-explanatory. And then polygamy as a means of exploitation of women. He's not talking about the most healthy expressions of polygamy, which I'm actually familiar with in terms of living in an African society before. However, we're talking about adverse expressions of polygamy, meaning where women do not get the natural benefits of what polygamy is meant to be for. And let me say another word on that. Polygamy historically has been meant to service the needs of people who are living in an agricultural reality. Okay. I hear a lot of talk about that, a lot of talk on the internet. Few people have ever seen it in its traditional context, but it has to be undergirded with values. All right. So nobody out here in the Western Hemisphere should ever even talk about polygamy, really, to be honest with you, because the values are what guide and undergird it. Okay, not libido, not appetite, not ego, none of that. It served the agriculturalist because what is the agriculturalist value? The idea is that you could never have too much land or too many children, right? The children become the natural laborers and inheritors of the land, right? So that was polygamy had a function, okay? So in many instances, it is outmoded on the continent, and I don't think we should even talk about it here for urban dwellers, okay? So let me just give you a visual. This right here is Burkina Faso. And what Thomas Sankara is talking about in the context of liberation struggles is that the women must be visible and contributing to every aspect of life. Okay, not simply the new subjugated class of people. And so in Burkina Faso, the women were integrated into the military. Now, I basically um, had an in-depth discussion about this and presentation about this at Temple University in particular, and this was a point that I think some people recoiled because of the imagery of our women actually having to take up arms. And I'll go a little deeper than this, but this is the reality. This is one picture that gives you evidence of the role of African women in liberation struggles in Burkina Faso. But the reality for African women throughout history on the continent and in the diaspora is that we fight on four fronts because we have to. Okay. I don't think anybody should mistake our role and our presence in every area of life, fighting on all fronts, as the equivalent to women's lib in the American context or even feminism in any way. We rise to the occasion out of necessity, okay? And I think there's a history, I know there's a history, and there's a long tradition of African women doing that, right? So if we wanted to go back to our antiquity, which I'm going to talk about a little bit later, we know that we have women in roles of leadership and advancing the rights of the people from the antiquity to present. Okay. And so this is on a continuum. And so that was what the imagery really is for, so that you can see. I'm not going to just tell you like that. We fought, right, to liberate African nations. You need to see that. These are some of the women of Burkina Faso engaging in protests in this post-colonial and in this post-colonial and revolutionary phase of the nation. This right here is Guinea-Bissau. And once again, what I wanted to highlight about Guinea-Bissau in particular, separate from Burkina Faso, is the fact that women were viewed and integrated into the military strictly as armed militants. Okay. There was no separation between the two. So you can see below and above the women who were present, a field officer in the picture above. At the bottom here, that is, of course, some of you may know him by his face, that is Amilcar Cabral. This right here, I included because I think it's important to know that these are real people. These are real women. I had the honor while in an organization called the All African People Revolutionary Party, some of you know it, to meet some of the women who engaged in armed struggle in Guinea-Bissau. Uh, and Anna Gomez is one, but above you see one of the sisters here who is in the field. The two below are also in the field and out of necessity, there with their children. Um, this was a reality for women who were armed militants. Okay, so just in the same way that, you know, women have been transformative in other ways in the nation. So, in other words, on the home front, a more contemporary context would be like Liberia. Okay, if some of you may have seen the film called Pray the Devil Back to Hell, about the women in Liberia actually waging a struggle, holding a sex strike. Why? To bring the 13-year war to an end out of necessity. Well, likewise, these women in decades before were engaged in active armed struggle to bring liberation to Guinea-Bissau, right? So we're in every space, and certainly, yes, in the spaces where armed struggle is, you know, part of the liberation process, right? So these are two sisters here. I don't know if you all can see the words, so I'm not going to really belabor the point, but one of them This is another field officer. Uh, and this is Anna Gomez, one of the sisters that I actually met who was involved in the armed struggle in Guinea-Bissau. Okay. Several of them were killed. Another image of Amilcar Cabral and the women of Guinea-Bissau who engaged in the armed struggle. Um, and then I want to just bring it over here to the diaspora. And some of you already know these are who? These are the women of the Black Panther Party. And we know that over 60% of the masses, 60% of the membership of the Black Panther Party were, in fact, women. We typically see the men in leadership positions. So everyone knows Huey Newton. Everyone knows, Bobby Seale. Everyone knows Eldridge Cleaver. Everyone knows, uh, who else? All the notables, but few know that the masses of the Black Panther Party were the women. Few know that a one time and only time chairman of the Black Panther Party that was a woman was Elaine Brown, right? So, for whatever it's worth. So, this is just to give you an understanding that the imagery, so you can have the imagery in your mind that we're fighting on all fronts on the continent and out in the diaspora. Now, one thing I want to just highlight here, and this is part of the point of doing any of this work, is to understand that there's a glitch in our context with regard to how we wage struggle and the necessity of women being liberated from oppressive conditions. When we do not understand that struggle, the struggle for liberation, and the struggle for the liberation of women are not separate, as Sankara is saying, then the fact that our women are still oppressed within our communities undermines our collective objective. Okay? So, in other words, when we fail to liberate our women, when we see the liberation of women as separate and apart from our struggle as African and Black people from imperialism, colonialism, from white supremacy and culture and slavery, when we see the liberation of our women as something separate, those contradictions are used to undermine our collective struggle. It is not separate and apart. It is one in the same. Okay? It's not secondary. And we know, those of us who are familiar with some of the history of the Black Panther Party, we know that within the Black Panther Party, much of the efforts were undermined. If you've read Elaine Brown's book, A Taste of Power, if, whether you like her or not, whether you read, if you even read Eldridge Cleaver's book, Soul on Ice, very troubling perspective. Okay? Those contradictions have been used to undermine our collective struggle. So if we are reproducing the contradictions of our oppressors within our community, when it's time to destroy our movements, when it's time to destroy our revolutions, those will be the contradictions that they use. Okay? Okay, so here we go. Just another imagery. And there's reason, obviously, I'm using imagery to highlight this because we need to see it. I know we've been told it, or some of us don't know it, but now you do. We need to see it, right? See the faces of the women who actually contributed to one of the largest organized efforts in the contemporary, yes, the 70s would be contemporary context in terms of revolutionary movements, Black Power movements in this particular country. But the women are a part of it. And I want to highlight once again that our women do not fight because we want to be like men. Our women do not fight because the fighting or the fight or the struggle is actually liberatory for them in the sense that they hadn't done anything. We are fighting on all fronts from the time we reach these shores, right? I'm going to recall some of the other history that you're more familiar with in a minute. And then finally, of course, yes, even this issue of the presence of women, right? But no representation for women in the sense that the liberation of women is not on the agenda in this movement, notably civil rights movement. Okay, got to take it there. Why? Because once again, another movement struggle that is undermined due to us internalizing the contradictions of our oppressors. Okay, as some of you may know, and I'll cite one book, Cone, Malcolm and Martin. Wonderful book. I read it decades ago. It is a must read if you want to understand our leadership here in this country historically. But King, and notably, refused to have women in leadership positions, right? And we know this. We know that in the context of the civil rights movement, the women were present. I should have ended this with, and I haven't ended yet, but I should have ended this with an image of Ella Baker. She's not here, so we'll talk about it. But women like Ella Baker, or notably Ella Baker, were the ingenuity organizer, always the national organizer in SNCC, trained the nonviolent masses to absorb the violence, waves of violence directed at them as King would come into each city and integrate it. They were the masses, he was the face, she was the brains and the key organizer from the beginning. Okay. Uh, she trained them, she organized nationally, okay, not simply locally. She organized nationally these desegregation movements, okay, in each and every one of those cities that they went into. However, you know King, you do not know Ella Baker classically, okay, and so once again, here you have women in mass, African women, Black women in mass on the front lines, but not visibly on the front lines. Okay, the worker bees, in essence, of the civil rights movement. So what are we missing? Because there is a blind spot, and that's my contention in terms of our struggles, our organized struggles. Um, we're missing gender-based contradictions derail total liberation. Historically organized freedom and liberation struggles have not made the total liberation of African women a part of the revolutionary process, and it must be. What does revolution mean? It means change, right? So I can't drive it home enough that what I'm talking about is the fact that our struggle is not separate and apart. Most of what I find many of my elder sisters say in conversation about this is that they were engaged in organized struggle, they were engaged in organized efforts, there were internal contradictions that could have been struggled around. However, they chose to take the high road. They chose not to address those issues because they felt like it was divisive. No, it's not divisive, it is necessary, right? Resolving those internal contradictions fortifies our unity and allows us to wage struggle successfully. Okay. Um, the political organization that I come from always had a woman's wing. And the purpose of the woman's wing is to deal with the specific nature of women's oppression, African women in particular, meaning while we struggle in concert with our men, right? Our men are also capable of engaging in the oppression of women. Okay. And so this was a characteristic of that organization to prepare and organize the women within the women's union, and to have brothers understand, have men understand in an organized fashion that it is their job to resolve their contradictions, and it is their job to engage and challenge and eliminate sexism, chauvinism, and misogyny. Okay? Because they are a part of white male patriarchy. So that's the point that we are missing here. Okay? The liberation of African women is a finalizing process. It signifies the liberation. So, in other words, if we, in an ideal world where we saw ourselves completely and totally liberated, the evidence of that would be that our women are not oppressed internally, right, within that group. The women are not abused, they're not subjugated, they're not the slave of the slave. Hopefully we would all be free in that context. But the point is that the women would not be the new oppressed class. Okay? That would not be the dynamic. The liberation of women within would signify that we have reached our goal. Okay. So, um, and then these are the last words. So just a couple of ideas here. So Thomas Sankara, he's one of the most progressive leaders and thinkers of all time, in my opinion. And why am I saying that? Because very few of our African leadership, Pan-Africanist or not, have put the liberation of women on the national agenda. And that's what it was. Okay. I would love to do a whole separate presentation on just the distinctively African approach Sankara had to um, building the nation post colonialism, right? Because he was uniquely engaged in promoting a sustainable economy, sustainable community, sustainable society and nation. So just the point, but um, this is notable because while Sekou Touré, Ahmed Sekou Touré, talks about the women in society and the role of men in eliminating, um, sorry about that noise, but women in society and liberating women and the role of men in eliminating sexism, he does not put it on the national agenda. Okay. While Emil Cabral also is progressive in his understanding of the role of women and how women must be fully engaged in every aspect of the liberatory process, uh, from the home front to the front lines, it is not necessarily put on the national agenda. And granted, Cabral never makes it to see the liberation of Guinea-Bissau from the Portuguese, right? He is assassinated a year before their withdrawal from the nation. But the idea is that Sankara understands that in order for us to truly be liberated in that country, the revolutionary process must include us throwing off the cloak of Western thinking, Western pathology that says white male patriarchy means that you step on the women, okay? And um, and so black men can't engage in that, right? African men can't engage in that, and them not engaging in that signifies, liberation. Locating Sankara in contemporary theory. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about that because Thomas Sankara actually is someone who, because we don't talk a lot about him, because we don't uh, use his theoretical line a lot, he has been co-opted in the academic sense by people who are not African, who are not Black. We don't write about him a lot. We don't invoke his theoretical line a lot. And he should be located in the context of contemporary theory. He would be the most notable womanist in terms of theory, as opposed to align with feminists. But you do see modern day feminists actually writing about Sankara, calling him a feminist, uh, co-opting, rewriting history, right? Claiming someone who, in essence, belongs to us, but we have not engaged the theoretical line and the practices enough to the degree that we are writing and expanding some of what he put in practice, right? In or outside of the academy or in our communities, in our organized struggles, okay? And I do think that that is, problematic. I would say he's certainly a womanist as opposed to a feminist. And I'll just tell you a very simple difference. So, womanism is always rooted in community, okay? The idea of centering community and women being essential to a healthy development of that community. So, a womanist brings power back to her people, okay? A feminist obtains power to advance one's individual self, right? And so that is the fundamental difference. If you understand Thomas Sankara's philosophy, what he's talking about is women as vehicles of power in the society who bring power to the people, in essence, okay? Not women seizing power and separating themselves or asserting that power or running off into the sunset with that power. But in the context that he is speaking of, power has to come back to the people, right? To the home, to the community, to the nation, right? So I would say if we were to locate him in the context of ideology, he would certainly be more of a womanist as opposed to feminist. But we have to, myself and others, have to claim uh, Thomas Sankara's philosophy, practices, line of thinking and integrate it into our contemporary struggles because what has happened is we do still think, and we're going through a lot in terms of the dynamics between men and women, particularly in the United States. Um, and we don't understand that pronounced chauvinism, pronounced misogyny, is essentially an announcement that you have internalized Eurocentric thinking, Eurocentric values, white male patriarchy, right? So we see it, we're seeing that espoused, but through our men, black men, okay? Not understanding that that is not the tradition, that is not the culture, and not to say there's never been chauvinism in Africa. Certainly there is, and I can talk about that. But that is not the the dominant line on the African continent, right? And that brings me just to briefly talk about the fact that um, ancient Africa, our antiquity, we understand that Africa is matriarchal and matrilineal. So when you talk about Hatshepsut or the Kindakes or, Makeda, all of these are women who used power, but also were the freest people, freest women of the ancient world. So when you talk about the source and the origin of chauvinism, misogyny, sexism, even, we know that it is not Africa per se, it is Europe, I will venture to say. And, there's a whole school of thought around that. It's not to say that it's not existed, chauvinism has not existed in Africa. I could show you the temples behind Hatshepsut's, the mountains behind Hatshepsut's temple, where men had drawn imagery of her in compromising positions. However, so there were men who had problems with a woman pharaoh, the first woman pharaoh, right? Even in a society that was matriarchal and matrilineal. That being said, they still had to deal with women in power, right? And that's very different from the history of Europe and Europeans. Um, okay, so can come off of my screen. uh, Let me see. Okay, Dr. Ma, you there?
I'm right here. I'm right here. I'm right here, Doc. So
Okay.
now you just have to hit stop sharing or stop.
Okay.
Yeah, that's stop. And now I'm back.
All right.
Was it magic, Doc?
Yes, it was, but so this is a different thing. I'm sure you guys could see me as I'm presenting, but
Oh
I
yeah,
can't
yeah, yeah.
see
You
you
were
all.
you were you were good to go. Well, hold on, Doc. I gotta drop a bomb for you.
Fire! 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 Fire!
Oh my goodness, Doc. This was a very, very informative and powerful discussion. Family, right now, let's give Dr. Wright virtual hand claps and some fire symbols if you enjoyed the presentation. And I'm going to put them on the screen. If you enjoyed your time at today's communiversity, at today's virtual communiversity, the Black African Power Lecture Series hosted by yours truly, Dr. Maat, throw some fire symbols in the chat and some hand clap symbols for Dr. Wright. Let's give her virtual flowers. You can throw some flowers in the chat. And so let's give her some virtual flowers right now, family. Also, family, right now, take some time out. Take some time out to visit this site to grab her book. To grab her book, Booker T. Washington in Africa. And I'm going to go right here. This is the website. You come here, and what do? It says about the book. You click order the book. When you click order the book, it brings you to this screen and you see how it says buy now, $19.95 plus shipping. And so what I'm going to do, family, is drop this link in the chat. I'm going to drop this link in the chat, family, as you are putting your virtual hand claps and your fire symbols. Make sure that you grab her book, family. Make sure that you grab her book. And so I made it easy for you. I went to order books. So all you got to do is scroll down here, hit buy now, right? Click on the link, grab her book. As I stated, you may walk into this thinking you know something about Booker T. Washington, but you'll come out realizing that you didn't know as much about Booker T. Washington as you did, right? And so, family, right now, take a moment out to grab the book. I saw in the chat that a lot of you already had the book. So shout out to the Maadi and family who already supported the work. Thank you so much. Family, also right now, let's take a moment out to send her a Cash App. Let's send her some love, family. Let's send her some love. Time is money, honey. Time is money. Time is money. And you know what, Dr. Wright? I do want to say this. I'm going to put her Cash App on the screen as I make this point. And this is what I said in the chat. This communiversity, as I tell them, I'm bringing on master teachers. And not only do I, you just call yourself Dr. Maat. No. Every day when I wake up, I think Maat. I speak Ma'at. I strive to think Ma'at. I strive to speak Ma'at. And I strive to live Ma'at. And so when people come on this platform, Dr. Wright, I always try to compensate people for their time. I know that I can't compensate you enough, for your time, your energy, and your wisdom. But when you come on, I've had Baba Baruti come on. I've had Baba Imhotep come on. I got Dr. Kaba Kamene. He's coming on next week. So bringing on these professors who are taking time out. They could be. You all have a zillion projects going on. I know I do. I have 4 projects that I'm taking part in, and also managing 6 camps, on top of publishing papers, on top of writing proposals, on top of managing research, on top of writing papers, on top of raising a family, right? So we all could be doing something else. And so that's why when people come on this platform, I always say, look, first of all, I make sure that I guarantee a payment to the speaker, and I always ask the Maadian family to support, so we can keep this thing going, And so supporting, just buy the book, Cash App, send some PayPal, something, nothing. Because I'm like, we got 40 people watching. If everybody spent $10, if everybody sent $10, that's $400, Dr. Wright. And so I'm thinking that's the least we can do to say that we love you, and appreciate you. And then you may take that money, pay your bills. It'll be something that will enable you to continue to do the work that you're doing. I remember you shared with me a couple of weeks ago, you were traveling. You were going to museums. You were shooting to the Library of Congress. So, the easy part is when we grab the book. Look, Doc, the easy part is when we just grab the book and we sit in the comforts of our home and we flip through pages and we read it and say, oh, this was good. But I think a lot of times, Doc, we don't understand the amount of work that goes into conducting the research, the amount of time, right? The time, energy, and resources that goes into gathering the information to put into these books. Right. And so that's the easy part, spending $20. But you all are people, including myself, we're spending thousands of dollars, right? To go places, to see things. We paying for hotels and food and look, transportation. And so family, come on, man. Like let's take some time out and let's reciprocate. And so anyway, Doc, I want to show you your flowers, your virtual flowers in the chat. Shout out to 100. Yeah, shout out to 100 Black Raoul. I see him. Look at this. Al Thomas, there's your fire symbols, J-Way. Oh, I think this is one of my Congo or South African brothers. Peace and love. Mighty Queen, Mother Warrior, Cynthia Rose, A Beautiful Mind. Trying to think who else. They're just giving you flowers. S.A. Smith, peace and love to you. Oh, that's Mama. Is that Mama Amma? Mama Emma Giddens. She said, I am just catching this and want to give my sister Dr. Wright. That's Mama Emma, from our DC, Doc. You know what I'm talking about.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mama, yes, my sister alumni.
Yes.
Yes, of course.
She said, I'm just catching this and want to give my sister.
She's known me forever.
Yes, she said, Dr. Wright, a shout out. And she said, in some Tuskegee love.
That's
all right, let me find out, Mama. Let me find out. Is Mama an alumnus?
Yes, of course.
I did not know she was an alumnus.
Yes.
She's a powerful sister.
I've known her since, I don't know, 18, 19.
She's a powerful sister. I'm telling you, powerful sister. I had met her some years ago, and then I had the honor of going to Kemet with Baba Anthony T. Browder, and she was on a trip with another mama. They were both on a trip, and she's just a powerful sister, doing a lot of great things, with her rite of passage program, for women. And so matter of fact, I had reached out to her some years ago because I wanted some women in my family. We wanted to do it. We wanted to go through the rite of passage with her. And so this is she's a powerful sister, powerful sister.
It always has been, right? Should I say how I know you, right? So at Tuskegee, she was part of an organization, progressive African organization called Kaheturu Kara, right? So she is one of the sisters and early members of that organization. Exactly.
Wow. Wow. The history is crazy.
And that organization had multiple organizations within it. So later on, I was in Society of MAAT, Dr. Maat.
Beautiful. Mm-hmm. Beautiful. Mm-hmm. She said 25 plus. She said, oh, thank you for the love. 25. Y'all do each other 25 plus?
Huh?
She said 20.
Yeah,
wow.
Sure, easily. Easily.
Wow. She said yes. She said yes, a founder.
That's right. Wow, she's a founder Mama. Of that organization. So
wow, Mama
be true to it.
Yeah, Mama true to this. Mama not new to this. She true to this. She as the younger people say, Mama about that life. Yes, Mama's about that life. All right, family. I'm going to drop a link in the chat if you have. This is Q&A period. This is Q&A time for any questions, okay, that you may have for Dr. Wright. Any questions. And I'm not talking about a question like this. I mean, Okuwa, you said, do you believe kindergartners should wear? Like, come on, man. They're talking about kindergartners, and it sounds like they're trolling, but trolling to get you blocked over here because we don't have time for that foolishness over here. Right. So the topic is Black African women in the liberation struggle. So, do you have any questions for Dr. Wright? I just dropped the link, family, in the chat. You can hop on in at this time. If you have a question or comment that you want to make regarding her presentation, you have the floor. This is the Communiversity. I'm opening up the platform right now to the community. You have the floor. Dr. Wright, I do have a question. You mentioned the book, Martin and Malcolm. Is that Martin and Malcolm in America, A Dream or Nightmare? Is that the book you were talking about?
No, it's
So
called Malcolm, Martin and Malcolm by Cone.
By Cone. Yeah. It says by James H. Cone.
Right. Does it say? Is the subtext the subtitle?
Yeah, the subtitle is A Dream or Nightmare.
Okay, so yeah, that's probably it. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
But originally, so that might be a republication of the original book. But when I read the book, and I want to date myself, very long ago, it was simply Malcolm and Martin, right? And so it's sort of a compare. So that the one you're talking about, I don't know what the publication date is, but
it's 2012, October the 9th,
so
2012.
That's definitely a republication. So the original book was Malcolm and Martin. It didn't have that subtitle.
It didn't have that. Yeah, they're like a dream or nightmare. So I'm wondering
you
what
do that, when you write a book and you gotta update it and all that kind of stuff. But the version of that book that I'm talking about would have been before 1996.
Okay, before 96. Okay, cool. Family, I'm dropping the link in the chat.
Yes.
And I think go ahead, Doc. No, go ahead. Finish your statement.
No, I was just gonna say thank you all for those of you who made a contribution already, but also the comments already that I saw. And I did want to ask the audience, so you probably have questions for me, but I did want to ask, did you all get did I land it? Did you get what I'm talking about in terms of the philosophy of Thomas Sankara, why you don't hear about him, and what the bottom line is in terms of philosophical thought around the role of women in our liberation struggles and revolutionary struggles? Did you get it? Like the adjustments we need to make here?
Absolutely. Did you get it, family? Let's thumb it up. Did you
Let's
thumb
get
it up, family, if you got it.
Because I'm going to tighten it up if you did it, because I want it to land. So that's important. This is why I thank you so much, Dr. Maat.
I thank you.
This is a space where, you do stuff and you write, you research, whatever, whether it's a book or a presentation or a lecture or, paper. It's fine for the academy, but the people that I'm speaking to, I like to know if they got it. Right?
Okay. Right. Well, Naga Priest said he got it. He put yes in the chat. Anybody else? Did it go over other people's heads? Naga Priest said he got it. He caught it.
Okay.
He said he caught it. I'm thinking, who else? Did anybody else catch it? You can put yes in the chat. You could put a thumb up in the chat, or just simply say yes, you got it, or understood.
Mm-hmm. And this is part of the reason why when we're in organizations, internal ideological struggle is so important. Right? So meaning internally dealing with our issues that allow us to show up unified. That is the struggle.
Absolutely.
Right? That is the struggle. We don't, but see, absolutely to you and I, but historically that's not what, you understand?
Right.
Thing is, right?
Absolutely.
It's like, listen, stop talking that woman stuff. Really. What are you talking about the women for? Shut up.
No, you're right. You're right. No, you're 100%
real, because we live it, right? So we live it all the time. Can't avoid it. So the point is that is part of the struggle, right? If you are acting as your oppressor does, right? If you are acting out in the same ways that your opposers do, if you are acting out in the same way systemic capitalism does in exploiting and oppressing the person next to you, then we've got to work on the internal stuff, right? Because you're doing the work for them.
Absolutely.
You're not doing our work. Right?
Absolutely.
We need you to do the work internally, right?
No, absolutely. And Mama Cynthia Rose, the Queen Mother, she said, Dr. Sankara is new to me. She said, yes, I understood what you said. She said, I want to research his philosophy more. Do you have any recommendations?
Yes, and you don't even have to read. Okay, so I don't know if I put it up here. Okay.
Women's liberation in the African freedom struggle.
Right. So this speech is this book actually was published in Cuba, and it is the full speech along with other information, and directly from Thomas Sankara. That book, this particular book, you don't have to even buy it. You can search it on YouTube. Women's Liberation and African Freedom Struggle. The audio book is on YouTube. So if you're one of those people, you can't find your glasses, like me sometimes, you can't find your glasses, or you're driving, you can still hear the book, the details of the book, and he goes very, very, very deep. I gave you the very clean version, but he gets into the nitty gritty of our people's culture,
Mm.
okay, in terms of really digging deep and dealing with our contradictions around women, okay,
Mm-mm.
yeah.
Beautiful, beautiful. There are some other questions, Dr. Wright. We have S.A. Smith. S.A. Smith said, I have a question. Since we seem to be an emotional people, how can we use our EN?
Emotion. It was,
I, but I wouldn't even say that we are emotional people.
I think it's
Because
passionate.
yeah, I think that, yeah, I mean, all human beings are emotional, right? Like humans are. I mean, that's what we all have emotions, right? That's a part of the human experience. So I wouldn't say overall, we're more emotional than other groups of people. I would say maybe more spiritual, yes, but
Mhm.
I wouldn't say more emotional than
Is that what the
other
person was
people.
trying to say? How do we use our emotion?
I
Or how do
guess. I guess.
okay, come back with that question.
Yeah. Dr. Amos Wilson would tear this question up. Dr. Amos Wilson was like,
Right.
we need to stop. Dr. Amos Wilson was like, we need to stop with that whole I'm spiritual, this, I'm spiritual. You better say I want to be the most intellectual group of people. Like he would beat this up. But anyway, S.A. Smith, reword your question and let me know. He may have done it. Um, he may have done it. Hold on, I see another thing. He said, I have a question. Since we are okay, he typed it out. Since we are an emotional people, how can we use it in a productive way and not in ways that harm us?
A good question. I think, well, first of all, I think developing oneself. So that's a tough question. I'm with you. I don't know that we're particularly any more emotional than anyone else, but I
Mm,
do think that we are deeply human, right?
absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
we're not afraid to show that. And I do think collectively, as a characteristic of our people, here, there, everywhere, we show our humanity, right? So it's
Absolutely.
not, we show it with expression. We don't mask it, and I do think masking your humanity, your human reaction is problematic. Okay. That being said, I think training oneself. That's what ideological. Once again, I hate to sound like a broken record, but that's what ideological training does for you. Meaning that and you don't have to be in an organization to train yourself ideologically. What does ideology mean? It means theory coupled with practice, right? And so ideological training is like saying, okay, this is what I believe, and how do I carry this out? Okay. So now, when you're engaged in action, aimless reaction that you might be calling, emotion, that there's no room for that is not as much room for that because you're committed to the action, right? This is, everybody who's engaged in organized struggle knows that there is a concept of always being committed to working, and working keeps you out of other stuff. Working keeps you on a certain path, right? Working on that particular goal, staying in motion, and that's important for human beings. So what I say to that is that ideological training is like affirming what we believe, the values, the principles of what we believe, and then very skillfully and thoughtfully carrying that out. Now, you don't have to engage in the the miscellaneous stuff. You are taking very focused action and practice as your method to achieving that goal, and if that is the goal is, our liberation. Listen, you don't get involved in the side stuff, because once you believe that this is our path to liberation, this is our way to remedy this issue, then you commit your energy to that.
Mm,
Right.
beautiful response, Doc.
Can
So,
I say one other thing?
okay, yeah, please do.
Fanon talks about that, right? Fanon, and I know a lot of people think that this is another theorist that said this, but it actually was Fanon. Fanon talks about the three questions that every revolutionary should ask him or herself, right? Who am I? Am I really who I think I am? Am I all I ought to be? Um, those questions help us work on just what you asked. The brother,
What book was that? What book was that, Doc? That wasn't Wretched of the Earth. Which one was that?
I'm not sure which book it is, because it might be toward an African revolution. It might be that one where he's talking about
You said it's three
reality,
questions. Mhm.
right? The reality of revolutionaries as they engage revolution in real time, right? Because he's writing about that in toward
Mhm.
African revolution, I think it is, the second one. But I'll give that to you. I'll I'll post it in here for you, because I want
Let's
to.
do it.
No, towards dying colonialism, I think. Towards,
Okay, and that's when he said, like, do I think? What were the questions
so
again,
the
Doc?
three questions are, who am I?
Right.
Am I really who I think I am?
Mm,
Am I all I ought to be? Now, I
mm.
know some of you on here are going to be like, that's Malana Karenga. It's not Malana Karenga. Malana Karenga
Ooh.
does say that. He does say that, and I recognize that, but that originates with Fanon, right? They're like,
Ashe.
oh, she's acting like she don't know. No, I do know. It's actually Fanon. It's not. Dr. Karenga does echo that, but that is
Absolutely.
Fanon who talks about that. And the point of me saying that is that, who am I? We may have an answer about who we are, and then the second question is, am I really who I think I am? That is the question that resolves contradictions,
Mm,
right? Because
mm,
that is the question where you say, who am I? Am I really who I think I am? Because now you can look at the practice. Am I doing, is what I'm doing in practice consistent with who I say I am? Right? And it's an opportunity um, to resolve one's contradictions, right? Now, this is Milana Karenga. Am I all I ought to be? The last question. He has answered to that question. If you are all you ought to be, then you have no more work to do.
woo.
Right?
Mm,
So most of us are on question number two, resolving our contradictions. Am I really who I say I am?
mm,
Right? In theory, this is who I say I am. In practice, is that really who I am? So
mm-hmm.
this is um, helpful in regard to the brother's question, how we address, you know, how we seem to react to certain situations, right?
Powerful, powerful, Doc. And I see Brother Marcus Sharp. He said, I'm moving around right now, but I remember from a previous show speaking about a black woman going to jail and being abused by two black men. Can't remember her name. That was Fannie Lou Hamer, man. That was Fannie Lou Hamer. I can answer that, Doc.
Yeah.
I can answer that, Doc.
hmm
Yeah, that guy's look. I may have to apologize to S.A. Smith. I said that's not a good question in terms of the way he said we're emotional. I think when he started with it, because it was a good question. It
Yeah.
really was a good question. But when he started with because we are emotional, it kind of was like wait a minute, because people always say that about black folks. Y'all are too emotional. I'm like, nah, we're no more emotional than other folks, right? Like,
No,
you
no,
know.
no.
And so
But
that was a really good question. I do agree that it was a good question.
what we have to be careful about is being reactionary, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So human emotions, that's not a problem, right? But
Absolutely.
um,
Absolutely. It really was a good question. Let me see. Ira only black African power. That's big Aboriginal power get into. Oh, that's one of the Aboriginal people. So we one of the Aboriginals. I'm gonna give you a chance to pull up, brother. I'm gonna give you a chance to pull up tomorrow at 7 p.m. You get all your Aboriginal people who said we never been to Africa, we've indigenous here. I'm gonna give the Abos a chance to pull up on Dr. Maat tomorrow at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Pull up at 7 p.m. All right, we're gonna have a virtual civil war tomorrow at 7 p.m., brother. Bring the Abo power with you. I'm gonna bring the Black African power with me. You bring the big Aboriginal power with you, brother. Okay.
I do have a question for him, though. People who represent that. No problem. How much time do you spend engaging the Native American groups?
Mm.
Right? I mean, do you get what I'm saying, right? Like, so there are various Native American groups in this country. This is, a Black and African context. So then, this is might not be the space, right? But I don't see people, those same people with those arguments talking about how they engage the Native American groups. Then that's the group, you might want to advance that with.
Got my son Hockey Customs in the building, family. Make sure you get your custom sneakers from Hockey Customs. Head on over to Instagram and get Hockey Customs. I sent him a message, Dr. Wright, him and my cousin, little buddy. I said the men I said the men got y'all today, because these brothers were hitting me up. They were sending nice messages to me, and I sent it to my son and my cousin. One of my cousins. I said the men just getting y'all today. Y'all just trifling. And so anyway, I guess he said, let me show some love. Let me show some love and get in this chat tonight. But peace to my son Haki, who's in the building, family. Peace there. Peace to Haki. Trying to think anybody else. I try. Why he said I wouldn't do it if I was you when I said pull up. Told him pull up. We're gonna have this virtual civil war. Pull up. And so Cynthia Rose said another knowledgeable great guest tonight. Ashe. So Dr. Wright, I yield to you. Do you have any closing words for the listening audience?
No, just that so if I had to do it all again, right, I would have flipped the presentation, meaning I would have given you all of our antiquity, because I do feel like we are at a loss for that too. And then so I'm giving a critique and criticism of self, right? And that also is a organizational practice where you tell what you could have done better. And I think going forward, what I would do better is, because I think some of our people need to be fortified in our antiquity, but we don't have all night. So we gotta,
right.
So I got to the crux of the presentation, but I do think that we need affirming, right? The same reason why we call our ancestors names. We need to hear that Hatshepsut, the Kendakes, you understand, all of those women that come before us in a presentation like this, and then of course the more contemporary ones, right? The Ella Bakers, the Annie Ruth Famous, Hamer, all of the women who engaged in struggle, the Harriet Tubman, the Sojourner Truths, all of that, the Amy Garveys. So that being said, but what I wanted to do with this presentation was in essence what I did, which is that deal with a philosophical line that and show you in a very real way the contributions, physical contributions African women have made on the continent that brought us to where we are, right?
Mm-hmm. And you did just that, Doc. You did a phenomenal job. I mean, you
Thank
did a phenomenal job. And I just appreciate you. And I want to drop this bomb for you one more time.
Fire! 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 Fire!
Yeah, you were everything. You're always powerful. You're always very powerful when you come on. Family, make sure that you join us back here. Make sure that you join us back here on Thursday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Dr. Wright is going to be breaking down the African exclusion measure.
Yes.
I called it the measures to ensure a white majority, which
I saw
Dr.
that.
Look, Dr. Anderson talked about that in his Powernomics books, how they have a population monopoly. But it didn't happen just because, right? It was there were policies that dictated the population, that influenced the population. And so I know you're going to get into the African exclusion measures. And I think that's just, like you said, one of many, or some of these measures that contributed to why you don't see most of us over here and why they have a population monopoly. And so anyway, she's going to be back to talk about the African exclusion measures this Thursday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So family, make sure that you're in the building. Make sure that you're in the building. I'm going to create the link tomorrow. I'm going to share it tomorrow. Once I create the link, just click the link so you can set a reminder, and make sure that you tell a friend, tell a family member, and so that we can fill these virtual seats. All right. And so anyway, Doc, thank you so much for coming on. Appreciate your time. I appreciate your energy. Family, if you want to send a love donation, you can send it to $. Here we go. I keep saying let's practice reciprocity. So you can practice reciprocity 2 ways. You can send her a love donation to, I said, is that Dr. Tyrene Wright? It's just Tyrene Wright. Ooh, let me take that off the screen. They'd be like, hold on. But like I sent to somebody.
Some people did. Let me see.
Look, Doc, they'd be like, I sent to somebody. I put up the wrong Cash App. Here we go, family. That is the correct Cash App. It on the screen now. You can send her a love donation to $Tyrene Wright, $Tyrene Wright. Or family, just simply go to her website and purchase her book. I've dropped the link in the chat a few times, and I will do it again. BookerTWashingtoninAfrica.com. They order book. Okay, here we go. I'm going to drop the link. So it's 2 ways you can reciprocate. Cash App, or just simply grab the book. All right, family. We're getting ready to get up out of here. Doc, I'm going to make a few announcements before I close out.
And make sure that you see my picture if you Cash App it. I don't use Cash App a lot, but okay.
You said make sure.
People say I don't see it.
People say I don't see it. I don't see it. But appreciate you, Doc. We'll see you back on Thursday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
It's my pleasure.
All right. Peace and love.
Peace. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. All right, family. So we had another master teacher, Grace the stage tonight in the virtual community space. And so, man, I'm looking forward to her presentation on Thursday. And to be honest with you, I had to go back and watch this one because it was just like so much information. And I'm one of those type of people, like even when I'm reading a book, it takes me a long time to read a book. Even with lectures, when I watch a lecture, it takes me a long time to get through it because I'm stopping, I'm rewinding. Like I want to comprehend what's being said to me, right? Or when I'm reading, I want to comprehend what I'm reading. So I might stop, I might look up a word because I don't know the definition of this particular word, and maybe using my context clues isn't working. And so, it takes me a while to get through things because I really strive to understand. You know how some people want to strive to be able to regurgitate things and sound smart. Like I really want to learn this stuff. And so I want to understand what's being said. And so I'm actually going to go through and rewatch this again. But anyway, family, you see it on the screen. UACI Summer STEM Camp 2023. It's going down July the 10th through July the 21st. Okay, so we have new dates. We were getting some complaints from parents because we initially wanted to start the camp on June the 20th. And in some schools, some kids aren't getting out of school until like June the 26th or something like that. I know in Baltimore doesn't shut down until June the 16th, I think 15th or 16th. And so some parents were really concerned about the initial dates. And so anyway, family, we pushed it back, okay, to July the 10th through the 21st. All right. So I'm going to drop the link in the chat, family. Make sure that you make sure that you get your children, grab a seat, get your child enrolled in the UACI Summer STEM Camp. We're going to be exposing children to cybersecurity, artificial intelligence, African history as it relates to STEM, right? So we really want to connect our babies, with science, technology, engineering, art, and mathematics. Well, in this case, not the art, but the mathematics. But you know what? Our ancestors viewed science as art. You get what I'm saying? So when you say science, you're saying art to us. But anyway, that's a whole nother conversation. Family, get your child a seat. We only have 30 seats available, 15 in person, 15 virtual. So the seats are going fast. So make sure that you give your child this beautiful, beautiful experience. Also, family, make sure that you're in the building, family, this Saturday, June the 10th at the Brooklyn Student Science Fair at the oh my goodness, Restoration Plaza. It's going to be at the Restoration Plaza in Brooklyn, New York. Make sure, family, that you're in the building. Also, family, support this endeavor. You got Q Butter, who's the mastermind behind this. You know, he wanted to bring STEM, to Brooklyn. He was saying there's a lot of children, family, who just haven't been exposed to STEM. And if you haven't been exposed to STEM in the 21st century, I'm talking about in 2023, your child's going to be left behind. We're in a technological revolution right now. So all of these jobs that we have now, that the pizza delivery jobs, Amazon delivery jobs, all of this stuff is getting ready to go out the door within the next 5 years. So if you don't have some sort of STEM certification or some degree or some business connected to that, you're going to be locked out. So, family, make sure that you support this endeavor to bring STEM to the hood, to bring STEM to our hoods. Okay. And if you can't make it up there on Saturday, just simply drop a $10 donation, $20 donation, support the event anyway. And even if you're going, still support the event. I just dropped the link in the chat, family. So make sure that you're in the building, family. Make sure that you're in the building. I see Amin and some said, I can't believe I missed it. I just got off work. Can't wait to get home to watch the playback. Ashe. All right, family. Make sure you join me back here at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Thursday. But I will go live on Wednesday if some of you abos want it. All right, family. Uhuru Sasa. Freedom now. African liberation. Abibi Fahodie. Peace and blessings.